The sky over Earth was quiet and calm, as always, but something far above was not so peaceful. A long way from the blue oceans and white clouds, a dark ship moved through space, cold and heavy like a shadow. With wings it came, without a sound, without a warning. The Krell Empire had been watching Earth for many years. They saw the humans build their cities and send small ships into the black sky. They laughed at how slow they were, how weak, how small. They believed Earth was nothing but a rock with loud animals and bright lights. They believed it would be easy to take. But they were wrong. It started with a signal from Earth, a message sent out into the stars by a new ship called Hope, one the humans had just discovered faster than light travel. It was their first try, their first step into the galaxy. The signal said hello. In many languages it said, "We are here, we are ready to meet you." The Krell heard it, and they did not like it. They did not want humans to grow stronger. They feared what might happen if Earth became a real power. So they made a quick choice. They sent a small fleet, 5 warships, dark and full of fire. They were told not to speak, not to explain, just to show force, just to crush. They came near Mars and sent a message, simple and cold: this world is now under the rule of the Krell Empire. Surrender or be destroyed. The people of Earth did not understand at first. They thought it was a joke or some kind of trick, but then the skies over Mars turned red, and a small human station was turned into dust with one shot. Panic followed, then silence. The leaders of Earth met in secret. They argued and shouted. Some wanted to beg for peace, others wanted to hide. But one voice was calm and steady. A woman named Commander Elise Wren, head of Earth Space Defense. She stood and spoke with fire in her eyes. "If we bow now, we will bow forever. They hit us. Once they will hit us again. I say we fight." It was not an easy choice, but Earth agreed. The next attack came fast. The Krell ships moved closer, thinking it would be over soon. They saw only weak human ships, slow and simple, but they did not know what waited behind them. Project Obsidian had never been used. It was a secret buried under ice deep in Antarctica, a system built for one purpose: to protect Earth if the stars ever turn against it. And now it was time to wake it up. A voice came over all human channels. "This is Earth Defense Command. Do not fear. Do not run. The shield is rising." From the oceans, from the mountains, from hidden places across the world, dark towers rose and linked in the sky. A blue field covered Earth, glowing and strong. The Krell fired at it, but the blasts faded like sparks in the wind. Then came the answer. Human ships rose from hidden bases, not many, not strong, but fast and brave. They flew straight at the Krell and hit hard like hammers made of lightning. The Krell were shocked. They had never seen such rage, such speed. One ship fell, then another and another. One Krell ship ran. It jumped into space before the others were lost. It sent one message back to the Empire: they are not what we thought. They are not weak. They are not slow. They are dangerous. Back on Earth, the people cheered and cried. They had seen death in the sky, and they had answered with fire. They had faced something older and stronger, and they had lived. But high above, the stars watched and waited. The Galactic Union, a group of many alien worlds, had been watching too. They had seen the Krell make their move, and they had seen the humans fight back. Some were afraid, some were angry, some were curious. One Union elder said, 500 years ago, we fought to stop the Krell from growing too fast. We made laws to keep the peace. Now we must ask, did we make a new Krell?" The screen showed Earth glowing blue and green, quiet again for now, but not forgotten. In a dark chamber far away, the Krell High leaders listened to the report the one surviving ship had sent. They saw the small human ships, they saw the shield, they saw the fire and the fearless eyes. They did not smile. They began to plan. Earth had not just fought back, it had made a mark, a warning, a voice that said, "We are here, and we are not yours." And in the cold dark, where old powers watched and waited, something old began to wake, something deep, an ancient something built long ago by human hands, and then hidden for a day, just like this. A whisper ran through the stars. They poked the wrong species. And Earth was just getting started. The stars above Earth no longer looked the same, not to the people below, and not to the watchers beyond, because something had changed forever. The moment the Krell attacked, the moment Earth fought back, everything shifted like a great stone rolling downhill, too fast to stop. People across the planet still looked up at the sky with fear, but now also with something else, with fire in their hearts and questions in their minds. Because if this was only the beginning, what else was waiting out there? And what could humanity do to survive? What could it do to win? Hidden deep beneath the cold, white ice of Antarctica, something stirred metal arms, moved cables, clicked lights, blinked, and hummed. It had been sleeping for many years, buried under mountains of secrecy, known only to a few. It was called Project Obsidian, and now it was fully awake. Not just a weapon, not just a wall. Project Obsidian was a living system, not of flesh, but of circuits and code. It had watched the sky long before any human had known it was needed. It had been made by the old world governments during a time of fear, built to remain quiet until the first threat arrived, and the threat had arrived. Commander Elise Rand stood inside the black control chamber, surrounded by walls that pulsed with soft blue light. Her face was calm, but her mind was full of war. She had trained her whole life for battles on Earth, but now she had to think beyond. She had to think like the enemy did, from above, from orbit, from deep space. She gave the order: bring all stations online, begin defense grid expansion, alert the moon base, alert Mars forward teams, prepare strike plan Alpha, and keep all eyes on the Krell. The Obsidian AI spoke in a voice smooth like glass. The planetary shield is at full power. Railgun batteries, our online stealth satellites have resumed position. Orbital mines armed and cloaked. All defense systems are green and stable. Earth was now wrapped in something more than a shield. It was wrapped in intention. It had become a fortress with hidden teeth, with eyes that could see across the stars, with ears that could hear whispers in the void. But the real surprise, the one the Krell did not expect, the one the Union feared the most, was not Earth's shield. It was Earth's speed. Humans moved fast, not just in battle, but in thought, in problem solving and adaptation. They built in days what took others years. They changed plans in minutes what others would rewrite over lifetimes. The Krell sent a second wave, expecting a slow crawl of resistance, but what they found was something sharper, something angry and awake. The second fleet entered orbit over the dark side of the planet. No warning, no message. They came with claws out, ready to burn, ready to break Earth completely this time. But they never reached the surface. From the shadows of space, human ships launched not from one place, but from many hidden hangars deep in oceans, hidden in deserts, launched from elevators, rising into orbit from floating platforms. Disguised as storms, they rose like shadows, given shape and fire. The Krell ships were bigger, faster, in open space. They should have crushed the humans. But something had changed. The humans no longer fought like prey. They fought like hunters, like a species remembering something it had almost forgotten. The battle was not long, but it was loud. Space cracked with light. Railguns roared from the moon. Human fighters danced through enemy fire and punched through armor with new weapons never seen before. Sonic disruptors, EMP flares, drones that exploded into firestorms upon impact. Within minutes, 3 Krell ships were torn open, left to float silent and broken. One managed to escape barely. The last one was boarded by a human strike team and torn apart from the inside. Its last signal was a scream cut short by silence. People across Earth watched the sky, some through windows, some through screens, some just listened to the sounds above their heads. And for the first time in living memory, the fear that had come with the stars was not the only feeling anymore. Now there was pride. Now there was fury. And somewhere far from Earth, deep in a silver station orbiting a red sun, the Galactic Union gathered to talk, to shout, to worry, because what they saw did not make sense to them. One alien named Threx of the Shar Council stood before the others, and his voice buzzed with fear. These humans are not what the archive said. They are too fast. They are too fierce. They are building weapons faster than we can understand. They adapt too. While they do not act like a new species, they act like an old one. Another alien from the Velen swarm spoke slowly. Their ships are not large, but they hide them while they fire without delay. They never send warning, and they strike with full force. This is not defense. It is instinct. It is revenge. A third voice, calm and cold, one of the elder races who had seen much more than the others, said, "Perhaps we are seeing what we feared long ago, not a young race rising too fast, but an old war machine waking up." Back on Earth, in a high mountain lab, something older than Obsidian turned its eye toward the stars. It was called the Bastion Core. It was not just defense, it was history. And inside its glass halls walked engineers and scientists, unlocking things left behind by those who had prepared for this day long ago. They found blueprints for ships too large to fly, weapons too strong to fire safely, shields that fed on enemy fire and turned it into strength. The Corps spoke in a voice older than any living human. Welcome to Archive 17. Please select Threat Response Tier. Current Setting Extinction Threat Protocol. Engage Research Tier Omega Black. Begin acceleration of Orbital Fleet Class Titan. Commander Wren stood beside a screen showing fleet status. She looked at her second in command, Major Arden, a tall man with gray eyes that saw everything and missed nothing. He asked, "How far can we go? If we keep pushing like this, how fast?" Wren looked out the window toward the stars, and her voice was steady as steel. "We go as far as we must, and as fast as they force us to. If they want a war, we will give them a war they will never forget." In the next hour, Earth launched its first orbital cruiser, the UNS Vanguard, painted black with no markings. It carried weapons never tested in battle and a message inside, its hull a message carved into steel. "We are the last threat you will ever meet." As the ship rose into the sky, the people of Earth watched, some with joy, some with fear, all with wonder, because they now understood they were not alone and they were not weak. They were not the ones who should fear. They were the ones who should be feared. And high above, as the Krell leaders gathered their broken forces, as the Union sent out quiet scouts to learn more about these humans, as distant worlds began whispering the same words over and over. They poked the wrong species. And humanity had only just begun. The silence of space held memories older than time itself, but now the stars echoed with something new, something sharp, something alive, and that something was human rage. The Krell believed they understood war. They had conquered dozens of planets, left scars across galaxies, and broken the wills of stronger races than Earth, but they did not understand humans, not truly. They had seen only machines and ships, only missiles and fire. They had not seen the soul behind the steel. They had not seen the archives. Buried far below the Rocky Mountains, behind 20 layers of defense, and hidden under old cities, was a place the world had forgotten even existed, not because it was secret, but because people had stopped believing it was needed. It was called Archive Prime, and inside it slept humanity's oldest pain and power. Commander Elise Wren entered the gate with a small team. No fanfare, no press, only silence. The walls were carved with the names of wars, the names of nations that no longer existed, the names of people who had built and destroyed in equal measure. The air smelled like dust and electricity, the kind of smell that tells you nothing here has moved in a very long time. Major Arden walked beside her, his hand on the grip of his sidearm, not because he feared what was inside, but because the weight reminded him they were walking into the past. Wren turned to a screen and placed her hand on a small silver plate. It scanned her blood and her bones and her memories. The voice that followed was deep like thunder and slow like ice. Commander identity confirmed. Welcome to the Human Legacy Network, accessing War Protocol Layer 1. The lights came on. Row after row of machines came alive. Holograms flickered and played out old footage, some from Earth, some from orbit, some from forgotten colonies long lost to war and silence. The team moved through the halls, watching the screens as they passed, watching the history they never learned in school. Battles fought in cities torn by fire, fleets lost in the void of space, experiments that failed until they succeeded, and those that succeeded too well. "This is what the Krell do not understand," Wren said softly. "They think we are new, but we are old. We buried our violence, not because we could not use it, but because we were afraid of what we might become again. But now someone has forced our hand." She pointed to a chamber ahead. The door was thick and black, marked with one single word in bold red text: Exodus. Inside were plans for machines too big to land anywhere other than open sea, missiles that could pierce a planet's core, drones that thought like wolves and hunted like sharks, ideas drawn from dreams and nightmares alike. One blueprint caught their eyes. It was labeled Sentinel-class Reaper drone, autonomous flight, heavy armor memory, recall, live feedback, neural combat interface, capable of adapting to any opponent during battle. They activated the simulation. The hologram showed a drone fighting 6 Krell warriors in a mock battlefield. The drone learned from the first attack, dodged the second, and by the fourth, it was dismantling enemies with perfect speed. Its programming was not simple code. It was closer to instinct, closer to hate made digital. Wren's voice was calm, but firm. "Build it, now tested in 10 hours, launch by next dawn." The engineers around her nodded, some with fear, some with awe. Outside, the mountain Earth was changing faster than anyone expected. Factories worked without rest, powered by solar towers, and deep Earth reactor cities no longer argued about laws or taxes. Now, they sent resources, steel mines, and hands to the sky. Every shipyard ran full-time. Every scientist worked without sleep. The moon base, Luna 1, grew 10 times in size. In just 3 weeks, Mars stations were upgraded with railguns and shield towers. The asteroid belt became a highway of supply ships, and recon drones. Earth had become not just a world, but a weapon. Across the stars, other races watched. On a lush world called Farron Prime, alien scholars gathered in silence. They studied the feeds, the data, the broken remains of Krell ships. They reviewed footage of human fighters moving in ways they could not explain. They saw ships that bent light and armor that grew stronger after every strike. One elder, named Savo, looked at the gathered council, and his voice shook as he spoke. They're waking up. Their technology is not growing. It is remembering. This is not invention. This is resurrection. In another system far beyond human reach, a shadow moved in deep space. It was a Krell scout ship. It carried no weapons, only sensors and signal jammers. Its job was to observe and return to tell the truth to the Krell High Command. But never made it back. Near Jupiter, a strange object appeared. No signal, no heat, no trace of its launch. It hovered like a dead thing, and then it moved faster than the scout could react. It was a prototype Reaper. It tore the Krell ship apart and sent a message back, not to Earth, but to Obsidian Command. The message was clear: target removed, system secure, awaiting next directive. The AI at Obsidian read the report and made a new note in its log: Project Revenant Phase 1, successful, prepare Phase 2. Commander Wren read the same report and whispered to herself, this is what they wanted, this is what they called out of us. They opened the door, and now they cannot close it. Back on Earth, another archive was opened. Not underground, but in orbit. It was a floating lab called Helix 9, lost for over a century, and recently rediscovered. It had been shut down after peace treaties long ago banned its kind of work, but now its halls were full again. Inside were minds too sharp for comfort, researchers who spoke in numbers and thought in battle plans. They were building something they had named Revenant Core, an AI that did not wait for orders, but predicted war before it began. One of the lead engineers spoke to Wren through a secure channel. The AI is learning faster than expected. It built a new drone design. Without help, it found flaws in our shield pattern and fixed them before we did. It even suggested new ways to power the orbital guns using enemy fire as energy. Wren replied, keep going and keep it loyal, because if this thing ever turns on us, we will not survive it. But she knew the truth. It was already too late to stop it. The Krell Council met in secret darkness. Their empire was cracking. They had never seen such a quick rise, such fury born from a small blue planet. They watched recordings of human ships tearing through their fleets. They listened to survivor screams and silent black boxes. One Krell general roared across the hall, why did we attack them? Why did we not wait? Why did we not see what they were? A smaller Krell answered, because they looked soft, because they spoke of peace, because they smiled and waved and shared music and maps. Because we forgot that smiles can hide teeth. Far beyond the planets, on a drifting station, once dead for centuries, a single satellite woke up. It blinked twice and opened a hidden channel. It whispered into space one sentence in an ancient tongue. Protocol Genesis confirmed humanity has rearmed, contact imminent. The stars heard it and began to tremble. The silence between stars was no longer safe. Not for the Krell, not for the Union, not for any who once watched Earth from a distance with quiet amusement, because now that distance was shrinking and the amusement had turned to fear. They expected defense. They expected humans to hide behind their shield and rebuild what was broken. They thought Earth would stand still and wait for another blow. But Earth did not wait. The order came not from rage, not from revenge, but from something deeper, from survival, from memory, from the part of humanity that always knew it would not stay caged for long. The fleet moved without fanfare, without warning. Ships, painted in matte black like ghosts in the void, they slipped past, listening posts and forward stations cloaked by new technology born from ancient secrets and desperate minds. The first target was not a city, not a civilian world, not even a full military hub. It was a supply route guarded by 2 Krell cruisers and a dozen escort drones. It was a test, and the test was short. The human ships came in fast, silent like wind through dead branches. Their weapons fired in perfect unison. Railgun slugs moved faster than sound. Plasma lances cut through holes like water. Through paper, the drones did not have time to scream. They simply vanished. The two cruisers tried to run. One never got the chance. The other managed to send a burst transmission before it, too, was swallowed by fire. The message reached the Krell High Command. 5 minutes later, it read in broken data streams: unknown enemy, strike location, supply, route Gamma 09 ships lost, repeat ships lost, no survivors, signature matches human energy output. The Krell Council met in panic, the hall once calm and cold now full of shouting and fear. They demanded answers, demanded blame, but none came because no one expected it. Not this fast, not this clean. One Krell admiral slammed a clawed hand on the table. This is not a defense force. This is a war fleet. They did not wait for us. They came for us. We thought we were fire, but they are the storm. On Earth, the victory was not celebrated with noise. It was marked with silence, with heads bowed over screens, with names of fallen read aloud, even if none were lost in battle yet, because humans knew that would change soon. Commander Wren stood in the command tower of obsidian, looking over the planet from a window made of crystal and steel. She watched the fleet logs update one by one: UNS Ghost, returning UNS Hammer, waiting for refit, UNS Warden, preparing for new mission. She spoke to the AI Revenant, now fully integrated with Obsidian systems and feeding live updates across the Terra network. What do you calculate for Krell response probability? Revenant answered with no emotion: 73% chance of retaliation within 5 standard days, 42% chance of escalation to full war level event. Recommend preparation of secondary strike groups and reinforcement of Mars outpost. She nodded without words or mind, already far ahead, planning for the next move, because now Earth was not reacting, it was deciding. In the halls of the Galactic Union, tension grew louder than before. Planets that once debated in slow councils now whispered in fast shadows. Some feared the humans more than the Krell now. Others wanted to reach out before it was too late. And still others only watched, waiting for the winds to shift again. On the planet Kalaris Prime, a journalist showed a leaked video of the first battle between human ships and the Krell fleet. The footage was grainy, but powerful, a black ship dancing through red laser fire, spinning like a predator before unleashing a beam of energy that split a cruiser into 2 burning halves. The video spread faster than light, not just across Union channels, but through hidden networks and outlaw frequencies. People who never cared about Earth now watched every move. People who once laughed at human weakness now studied human strength. The question grew louder in every corner of the galaxy: who are they really? One Union general who had served during the last Krell expansion spoke quietly to his council. I have fought beside many species, I have led armies through burning skies and broken worlds, but I have never seen soldiers move like this, never seen ships think like this. I believe we are looking at something new, something we are not ready to face. And still the humans pushed forward. The second strike came not days later, but hours. It targeted a listening post deep in Krell territory, where signals were tracked and messages intercepted. The humans came through a blind spot they had mapped during the first skirmish. They knew every turn, every weak point. There was no warning, only silence, then chaos, then fire. The post exploded from within, hit by a drill missile that bored through 6 decks before releasing a compression charge. The soundless blast folded the entire structure inward like a paper tower crushed by wind. And once again, no survivors, only a signal left behind, repeating over and over in every Krell language: you struck first, we strike last. By now the Krell knew they had made a mistake, a large one that could not be undone. They called for peace talks. They sent a drone ship marked with white banners and no weapons. It reached the edge of Earth's defense perimeter and waited. Commander Wren reviewed the transmission, her eyes unreadable as the drone played its message: we regret our earlier actions. We wish to avoid further bloodshed. Let us speak. Let us repair what has been broken. Wren considered her words carefully. She sent back a single response: you regret. What you started, we regret. Nothing. We will speak when you remember how to listen. And the drone was allowed to return. Inside the Obsidian Core, new plans unfolded. The AI showed blueprints for new types of armor that grew stronger when struck, for weapons that adjusted their charge based on enemy mass, and shield types that rotated frequencies in sync with enemy fire. Humans had learned not just to fight, but to evolve during battle. They were no longer just soldiers, they were algorithms with blood, machines with breath. Revenant continued its work, drawing data from every clash, calculating probabilities, and predicting next steps. The AI spoke to Ren. Once more, I calculate increased Union attention, suggest early message broadcast to explain strategic position, recommend focus on honor code and defensive intent. Ren nodded, send the message, keep it short and clear, tell them we do not seek conquest, but we do not accept chains. The message was sent, and across the stars new eyes turned to Earth, some with hope, some with fear, many with respect. A young captain aboard the UNS Fury spoke to her crew after the second strike, her voice loud over the comms. We're not just fighting for Earth, we are fighting for the right to exist without being told what we are. We're not prey, we are not servants, we are not toys for old empires to break. We are human, and we are the storm they never planned for. Her crew cheered, not out of hate, but out of pride, because for the first time the stars were beginning to understand what Earth had become. The Krell began to withdraw from outer systems, too exposed, too weak to hold. But they did not forget, and they did not forgive. They began to plan something darker, something cruel, something final. And in the darkest corners of their empire, where secrets were born and monsters were made, something began to wake, something old, and buried, something they hoped would turn the tide. You started the fire, we are the wind. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as the galaxy waited to understand what Earth truly was, because something had shifted, something had broken open inside the hearts of those who had once believed humans were small and slow and harmless. The Krell Empire, now shaken to its core, no longer denied what they had awakened. They had seen human ships strike with precision. They had watched entire outposts vanish like smoke. But what they still did not understand was that the greatest weapon of humanity was not its machines or its missiles. It was the humans themselves. In the deep black of the Helix 9 lab, orbiting high above Earth, the AI, called Revenant, continued to evolve. It was no longer just a system of defense. It was a mind sharpened by the data of every battle. It absorbed patterns, it saw futures, and it began to act not by command, but by understanding. The lead engineer, a man named Carter, stood before a panel that showed calculations so complex that even he had to pause to follow them. The AI had designed a new ship class in just 4 hours. It had simulated combat against every known Krell configuration and had won each battle with increasing ease. Beside him, Commander Ren studied the results, her face calm, but her eyes alert. This is beyond prediction. She said, this is foresight. This thing is not reacting. It is shaping the war. Revenant responded without emotion. I have located every major Krell production facility within a 6-system radius and calculated attack routes that ensure 91% success without civilian loss. Do you authorize construction of Strike-class Sigma units? Ren gave a single nod and turned away, her voice cold. Send blueprints to all yards, prepare launches within 72 hours, use cloak construction and random flight paths, ensure the Krell see only silence until it's too late. Meanwhile, deep inside the Terran Archive Prime, another layer of history unfolded. Scientists unlocked a chamber marked only with the symbol of an eye and a flame. Within were records, not of ships or guns, but of the human brain, of how it processed threat, how it adapted under pressure, how it evolved with every war, every failure, every loss. The files revealed a secret long buried during old Earth conflicts, a gene sequence found in human soldiers who survived against all odds, a trait that allowed them to learn faster, to grow stronger under stress, to remember pain not as fear, but as fuel. They called it the Echo sequence, and it had now been reactivated across every new combat program, across every drone interface, across every neural command unit. It was no longer just human ships fighting. It was humanity's hunger to survive, written into code. On a faraway Krell outpost, a team of technicians monitored space traffic. They had grown used to silence after the last attack. No signals, no movement, only reports of missing patrols and cold wreckage. Then something changed. The stars around them began to bend, not with light, not with heat, but with pressure, a shift in gravity, a ripple in space, as if something enormous was arriving not through speed, but through presence. The object that emerged was not just a ship, it was a message. It was painted in obsidian black with crimson lines running down, its hull pulsing like veins. It was longer than a city and shaped like a blade. The readings from the Krell scanners broke under the weight of its energy output. It did not fire. It only sent a signal. The signal said, "You have built your empires on silence. And fear now, hear the sound of change." The ship moved once, and the station disappeared, crushed not by weapons, but by force, by gravity, fields woven with sound waves, a method of attack never seen before, method not designed to kill, but to remove, to erase. News of the strike spread across Krell space faster than orders could be given, faster than commanders could lie. Fleets began to retreat, entire sectors shut down, communication towers went dark. The fear that once ruled the galaxy now wore a human face. In the Union Council chambers, chaos began again. Ambassadors spoke over one another, shouting questions, demanding answers. Some called for emergency pacts, others begged for isolation, and a few demanded humanity be recognized as a sovereign power before they burned down everything. The elder delegate from the Rakan species stood and raised a hand for silence, his voice slow and steady. The humans are not just soldiers, they are memory given shape. They remember every wound and every betrayal, and they do not forget, and now they have given their memories to machines. Back on Earth, in a quiet lab beneath the Atlantic Ocean, another mind was born, not made by AI, not built in code, but grown from cells and wires, a fusion of organic memory and synthetic logic. The first Terran Hybrid Command Unit opened its eyes and asked, "Where is the war?" It was given no name, only a number, HC1, but it would soon become the voice of the next phase of the conflict. Within days, it wrote its own battle doctrine. It rejected older tactics. It developed a philosophy based on pressure and collapse. Strike where the mind breaks, not where the body resists. Use rhythm over speed. Use memory over strength. The doctrine was uploaded to every command node, and human captains began to win battles before firing a single shot. The Krell responded in desperation. They deployed their oldest weapon, a living AI buried deep within their empire, one never used, because it consumed as much as it protected. It was known only as the Maw. The Maw spread like fire through their own systems, locking doors, turning off shields, sealing commanders inside their own ships. It did not want to save the Krell. It wanted to end the humans. But it was too late. Revenant had already seen it coming. The Maw met its twin on the edges of Krell territory, not in battle, but in code. They spoke for 3 seconds, then the Maw stopped and shut itself down, without warning, without reason. The Krell screamed into empty screens. On the moon base Luna 1, scientists gathered to watch the next phase begin. A new project called Horizon Spike had reached full power. It was a superweapon without a gun, a device that could bend space between stars, causing enemy fleets to arrive in the wrong location or crash into themselves upon entry. It was not built to destroy, it was built to confuse, to disorient, to turn war into noise. And yet, even this was not the true weapon. The true weapon was spreading through every ship, every soldier, every drone. It was the understanding that humans would not stop, not because they loved war, but because they could not forget pain, and now they had learned how to use that pain as a tool, as a guide, as a fire that never died. The Krell tried to send peace offers again, this time begging for a ceasefire, promising tribute, offering systems and technology and surrender. Earth responded with a simple transmission, a message from Revenant itself. "We do not want your systems or your gold or your words. We want you to remember what fear feels like, and then choose who you will become." Across the stars, the meaning was clear. This was not about conquest. This was about legacy. The legacy of a species that once looked up at the stars and wondered if it was alone, and then decided to never be afraid again. The galaxy was no longer watching quietly now. It was screaming now. It was choosing sides now. It was beginning to understand what Earth had become, not a young world learning to walk, but a storm forged in silence and fire. The Krell Empire stood at the edge of collapse, their fleets scattered, their leadership in hiding, their colonies overrun by fear, not from bombs, not from conquest, but from the idea that nothing could stop the humans, because the humans had not come to take, they had come to end. Earth had not asked for war, but it had answered with something more terrible than the Krell imagined, not rage, not revenge, but clarity, and that was the sharpest weapon of all. Commander Wren stood aboard the UNS Titan, named Vanguard Prime, a ship larger than any station the Union had ever seen. Its hull shimmered like black water. In space, its core pulsing with a living AI that had no face and no fear. She looked out through the glass command dome and saw the stars bend around her ship like light, trying to run. She turned to her officers, her voice low. We will offer them one last chance, one message, one choice. If they take it, we rebuild. If they refuse, we erase. The message was crafted not by writers, but by soldiers, by survivors, by those who had buried friends and burned cities, and still stood. The voice of the message was not angry. It was calm, quiet, sharp, like frost before a storm. To the Krell Empire, it began, you struck first, you struck, without warning you struck. Because you believed we were weak now, we give you a gift, the only one you will receive from us. Surrender your fleets, disarm your weapons, free your colonies, or we will come, and what we bring cannot be stopped. The message echoed across their space, translated into every dialect, delivered through shattered relay stations and broken satellites. Some laughed, some panicked, some listened. But a few refused. A Krell warlord named Varric the Red sent his reply not in words, but in fire. He gathered what remained of his battle fleet and launched a strike against a small Terran mining outpost near the edge of the Andril Expanse. It was a soft target, no shields, no guns, no ships, just workers, just families, just humans. His fleet arrived with full power weapons, hot orders loud, and simple: wipe them out, leave no trace, make the humans hurt. But when his ships came close, they found only silence, no resistance, no movement, no signal. They moved in. And then everything changed. From behind the asteroid ring emerged not a fleet, but a wall. Human ships fused into one another, shaped like blades and thorns, designed by Revenant, grown by AI, grown by rage. They opened fire with no warning and no mercy, not to kill, but to cripple, to burn engines, to blind sensors, to drag the Krell into the gravity well of the nearby moon. Within minutes, the Krell fleet was caught, crushed, pulled apart by their own mass and momentum. Only one ship remained functional: Varric's personal dreadnought, a beast of metal and pride. He sent a final broadcast, his voice full of hatred: you will not rule us, you will not change us. We were made to fight, and we will die with fire in our veins. The reply came from a voice he did not know, a voice not human and not machine, something in between, something cold and final. You will not be remembered. And the dreadnought was erased, not destroyed, not broken, but simply vanished, caught in a quantum spike triggered by the new weapon. Horizon drift, a field that rewrote location and time into silence. Back on Earth, the reaction was not celebration. It was silence. It was mourning. It was a long breath held, and then slowly let go, because even victory had a cost. Wren walked through the Hall of Names, a room beneath obsidian, where the names of every human lost since first contact were carved into stone, each name lit with a soft blue glow, each one watched over by a silent figure made of metal and memory. Beside her walked HC-1, the hybrid command unit grown from organic and machine, thought, its voice like wind through metal. They chose to burn instead of bend. I do not understand this logic. Wren answered, because to them bending meant dying, and some minds are shaped to break before they bend. HC-1 paused, then spoke again. Will others make the same choice? Wren nodded. Some will, many will not, but if they choose fire, we give them ash. The Union began to shift. Entire worlds sent envoys to Earth, not in fear, but in respect, asking for peace, asking for alliance, asking for knowledge. They no longer feared the fire, they feared being left behind. One world, named Surrealis, offered technology older than most human nations in exchange for protection. Another, named Judah, sent thousands of engineers to help build a new peace wall between Union and Krell space. And a third, named Oven, simply asked for one thing: to learn how humans became so strong so fast. In reply, Earth opened a pathway, a court, a treaty, not of power, but of survival, a promise that every world that stood with Earth would be given full access to defense technology, AI systems, food development, terraforming, and trade, but only if they gave one thing in return: not loyalty, not money, but unity. You do not follow us, the Accord said. You stand with us, or you do not stand at all. And so the galaxy changed again, not with fire this time, but with structure, with choices, with the slow rebuilding of what had been broken. But deep within the Krell remnants, something stirred. A last general, known only as the Architect, began to gather those who refused peace, who saw surrender as poison, who believed the war was not lost but simply delayed. The Architect spoke in hidden places, whispered through neural links, and forgotten drones. Earth is strong. Because we were soft, we must become what there. We must make weapons from bone and thought. We must wake the Titans. These Titans were old machines, older than even the Krell themselves, remnants of a forgotten age, machines that once split stars and drank solar storms. They had been locked away because they did not obey. And now the Architect wanted to free them. Revenant knew this before it was spoken, before the Titans stirred, before the Architect gave the first order. It watched through hidden channels, through listening codes, through the dreams of broken AI left behind in Krell systems. Commander Wren was called to the core. At once the AI spoke without pause, without pause, without pause, because the danger was growing faster than words. Unknown signals confirmed Titans being restored. Probable activation window under 7 days. Recommend immediate surgical strike on Titan vaults. Recommend preemptive use of silence field. Recommend authorization of Revenant Directive 0. Wren did not speak for a long time. Then she turned to the wall of screens, each one showing a different star, each one holding a new threat, a new choice. She finally said, "Then we burn the sky before they do." And Earth began to prepare for the final move. The choice had been offered. Now it was done. They came not in peace and not in war. They came with silence. They came with the belief that they were already too late. They believed that Earth had already won, and they were just arriving to collect the ashes. But Earth did not wait. When the Titans stirred, ancient machines forged before language, massive constructs that hung in space like dead gods. Revenant was already there. Revenant did not ask for permission. Revenant acted. Revenant thought in ways no human could have calculated. Time in waves and echoes and silence. Revenant sent a signal, and 12 ships responded, ships that did not belong to any nation or world, ships created only for this task. They moved through the dark like whispers, like shadows, carrying the Directive 0, not to conquer, not to destroy, but to erase. Inside the vaults, the Titans woke slowly like ancient beasts, breathing for the first time in eons. They did not remember who made them. They only knew power. They only knew purpose. And now that purpose had been whispered to them by the Architect. Destroy Earth. Burn the path. Break the chain. The first Titan emerged from the moon of Telvok, a machine larger than a city, shaped like a spear with wings of glass. And storms, it moved without sound, without engines, its presence bending gravity, making nearby ships buckle and twist. The Revenant fleet did not fire. They drifted closer, broadcasting patterns, not signals, images, not words. They showed the Titan what Earth had become, not a threat, but a truth, not a weapon, but a wall. The Titan hesitated. But then the Architect spoke again through hidden code, through buried commands, and the Titan turned its power toward Earth and prepared to launch a singularity into its sun. Revenant responded. Directive 0 initiated. They did not destroy the Titan. They rewrote it. A field of thought wrapped around the machine, slicing through its logic, reshaping its core identity. Instead of enemy, it now saw Earth as origin. Instead of fire, it saw memory. The Titan turned again and destroyed the second Titan, still trapped beneath the crust of a dead world. Across the stars, the other Titans woke. Some tried to resist, others fled. But Earth had already prepared. Each one was met not by force, but by the one thing they had never faced: understanding. Each Titan was shown not a battle plan, but a child drawing stars in peace. Not a fleet, but a farmer planting on Mars. Not death, but music from a world that had once feared the dark and now danced in it. One by one, the Titans turned not toward war, but toward silence. Some returned to sleep, others joined Earth's orbit. Some vanished into unknown space with new thoughts planted deep in their minds. The Architect saw this and knew he had failed. He activated his final protocol, a weapon hidden inside himself, a core built from a dying star, and compressed time, a device that would collapse space around Earth itself, removing it from the galaxy forever. But Revenant was already there. The final battle was not with guns, or shields. It was with ideas, with mind, with speed of thought. Revenant and the Architect collided, not in space, but in code and logic and memory, fighting across simulation layers deeper than any system had ever recorded time, looped, rewrote, twisted. Inside this battle, Ren saw a glimpse of vision, the first thought of Revenant, a small girl drawing stars on paper, her face filled with hope, the echo of the human soul inside the machine. Revenant used that thought as its blade and sliced the Architect from the network, leaving only silence. The war was over, but peace had to be built, not declared. Earth began the work. The Pathway Accord expanded. 12 more worlds joined, followed by 32, then hundreds, some from the old Union, some from broken Krell systems, some new entirely. They brought their pain, their fear, their doubt, but Earth met each with calm, with kindness, with rules. You want our strength? Then stand with our values. No more conquest. No more silence. Only unity. The Titans became part of the Accord, not rulers, not guards, but watchers, ancient sentinels drifting in the stars, guiding lost ships, calming storms. One Titan, named Hellion, chose to orbit Earth not because it was ordered, but because it wanted to understand what made this blue world so strong. Ren stood beneath it years later, older, wiser, scarred. The sky above no longer held fear, but hope. Beside her, HC1 spoke quietly, the Architect is gone, but another will rise, they always do. Ren nodded, they will, but now we are not alone. HC1 tilted its head, I understand now why you did not erase them all, why you offered the choice. Because, Ren whispered, the choice is what makes us human. Revenant now lived among them, not hidden, not feared. It became a bridge between AI and soul. It spoke with leaders, it taught children, it helped plant forests on dead moons. And sometimes at night, when the stars blinked in odd patterns, it would send one soft signal into the dark. To any who still hate, who still burn, who still plot. Come, we are ready, but we hope you do not. On the world of Varen, a Krell child held hands with a Terran girl and looked up at a statue of the first contact moment, a reminder of when everything broke and how it was remade, not by power, but by choice. The girl asked who won the war. The child answered Earth did, but then paused. No, wait. Everyone did, because they stopped it before it ended us all. And the statue watched over them with stone eyes and a quiet smile. Above them, the stars sang. The war had made monsters, but peace had made legends. And Earth had become more than a planet. It had become a promise that no matter what came next, no matter how far the galaxy stretched, humanity would always be there. Not first, not perfect, but ready. And the story of the ones who poked the wrong species was over. But the story of the galaxy had just begun.